The South China Sea, a vast expanse of blue dotted with hundreds of islands and reefs, has become the epicenter of a tense geopolitical struggle. Once known mainly for its rich fishing grounds and vital shipping lanes, it is now one of the world's most dangerous flashpoints, where rival navies and coast guards face off in a high-stakes game of brinkmanship. China claims almost the entire sea, drawing its infamous nine-dash line, and disregarding the internationally recognized rights of smaller neighbors like the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Chinese ships routinely block Filipino fishermen from their traditional fishing grounds, harass the Philippine Coast Guard with aggressive maneuvers, and rapidly construct military bases on artificial islands, transforming reefs into heavily fortified outposts bristling with radar, missiles, and airstrips. Tensions have escalated dramatically, with Chinese vessels ramming Philippine boats and causing dangerous collisions at sea. Filipino soldiers and sailors have been injured during tense resupply missions, as confrontations grow more frequent and violent. At the heart of this standoff is the BRP Sierra Madre, a rusting World War II-era ship deliberately grounded on Second Thomas Shoal. It stands as a symbol of Philippine sovereignty, manned by a handful of Marines under constant threat from Chinese vessels. For the Philippines, defending this remote outpost is not just about territory, it's a matter of national pride, dignity, and survival in the face of overwhelming odds. The United States has pledged to defend the Philippines if attacked, invoking a decades-old mutual defense treaty and raising the stakes for the entire region, as any miscalculation could draw in global powers. The South China Sea is not just a regional issue, it is a global trade artery, with trillions of dollars worth of goods passing through each year. Any conflict here would send shockwaves through the world economy. Today the Philippines stands on the front line, caught between superpowers, as the world watches anxiously, hoping that diplomacy can prevail over confrontation in these contested waters. The Philippines sits at a strategic crossroads in the Pacific, a nation whose geography has shaped its destiny for centuries. Nestled between the vast South China Sea and the open Pacific Ocean, it is more than just a collection of islands. It is a gateway, a buffer, and a prize in the eyes of global powers. This unique position makes the Philippines vital to both China and the United States, who see the archipelago as a key to influence and security in Asia. The competition for sway over Manila is fierce, with both superpowers eager to tip the balance in their favor. Its alliance with the U.S. is built on decades of shared history, forged during World War II and solidified by a mutual defense treaty. American presence has long been a cornerstone of Philippine security, providing reassurance in uncertain times. Today, American military support remains crucial as the Philippines faces a much larger and increasingly assertive China. Joint exercises and defense agreements are not just symbolic, they are a lifeline for a nation wary of being overshadowed. For China, the Philippines is both a barrier to its ambitions and a potential gateway to the wider Pacific. Control or influence here could shift the balance of power in the region, making every move in these waters a high-stakes gamble. Beijing uses economic incentives, loans, investments, and infrastructure projects to sway Manila, hoping to weaken U.S. ties and draw the Philippines closer into its orbit. The promise of development is tempting, but it comes with strings attached. The Philippines must walk a tightrope, balancing the security guarantees and historical ties from the U.S. with the economic opportunities and pressures from China. Each decision carries weight, affecting millions of lives and the nation's future. Leaning too far toward either side risks retaliation, economic dependence, or even the loss of sovereignty. The stakes are high, and the margin for error is slim. Every move is scrutinized in Washington and Beijing, with analysts and officials watching for any sign of shifting loyalties. The balancing act grows more difficult as global tensions rise, yet the Philippines is not just a pawn in a great power game, it's a nation striving to chart its own course, to protect its people and its sovereignty amid immense pressure from all sides. The stakes are nothing less than security, prosperity, and the very identity of the Philippines on the world stage, a nation determined to define its own future. China could shift tactics, offering the Philippines a tempting deal. Expect promises of massive infrastructure investment, railways, ports, airports, and joint development of South China Sea resources. China might allow Filipino fishermen back into contested waters, easing local tensions. But these offers come with strings. Manila would likely have to accept China's maritime claims or ignore international rulings. Accepting could mean trading sovereignty for short-term economic gain. Chinese aid often benefits China more than recipients, with high-interest loans and imported labor. Such a pivot would alarm Washington, risking the U.S. Philippines alliance. The real cost: weakened sovereignty, legal setbacks, and possible isolation from key allies. The choice is fraught with hidden dangers. The Philippines has already tested a pivot to China under President Duterte. Duterte distanced Manila from Washington, seeking $24 billion in Chinese investment. Only a fraction of the promised money arrived. Most projects stalled or were cancelled. Meanwhile, China's aggression in the South China Sea continued, undermining Philippine sovereignty. Duterte's overtures didn't change Beijing's behavior or bring real benefits. The experience left Filipinos skeptical of China's promises and wary of sacrificing alliances for empty deals. The lesson: China's pledges often serve its own interests, not the Philippines. Any future leader must remember these hard-earned lessons before trusting Beijing again. If the Philippines accepts a major deal from China, it would mark a dramatic shift in the region's balance of power. Such a move would not go unnoticed by the world's superpowers, especially the United States, which has long considered itself Manila's most reliable partner. The decision would send shockwaves through diplomatic circles, raising urgent questions about the future of alliances in Southeast Asia. The U.S. would respond quickly and harshly, viewing the deal as a direct challenge to its influence and credibility in the Pacific. American officials would likely convene emergency meetings, strategizing how to protect their interests, and send a clear message to both Manila and Beijing. Washington could review or even scale back the Mutual Defense Treaty, a cornerstone of regional security for decades. The U.S. might question whether it should continue to defend a country that appears to be drifting toward its strategic rival. Lawmakers and policymakers would debate the wisdom of maintaining costly commitments to an ally whose loyalty is now in doubt. The sense of trust that underpins military alliances could begin to erode. Military aid and joint exercises would likely be reduced or cancelled, leaving the Philippine armed forces with fewer resources and less training. The absence of American support would be felt almost immediately. This would weaken the Philippine armed forces, making it harder for them to defend their territory and respond to regional threats. The gap in capabilities could widen, leaving the country more vulnerable. The U.S. could also impose tariffs on Philippine exports, disrupting trade flows and putting pressure on key industries. This economic retaliation would be swift and targeted. The result? Threats to jobs, factory closures, and rising unemployment. Filipino workers and families would feel the impact as the economy slows and opportunities dry up. American pressure would force Philippine businesses to choose between U.S. and Chinese supply chains, a decision that could reshape entire industries. Companies would face tough choices, risking market access and long-standing partnerships. The message from Washington would be unmistakable. Siding with China comes at a steep price, not just in politics, but in the daily lives of ordinary Filipinos. The Philippines would risk losing access to advanced military technology, intelligence sharing, and economic opportunities that only a close alliance with the U.S. can provide. U.S. retaliation could trigger a deeper economic crisis than any Chinese offer could offset, plunging the country into uncertainty and hardship. The alliance's strength depends on trust. Once that trust is broken, rebuilding it could take years if it happens at all. Once lost, it's hard to regain. The consequences would echo far beyond the negotiating table, affecting generations to come. In the end, Manila would be trading one set of problems for another, possibly even worse ones, while the nation stands at a crossroads facing an uncertain future. A pivot toward China would hit ordinary Filipinos first in their wallets. U.S. tariffs could devastate key industries like outsourcing and manufacturing, leading to layoffs and factory closures. Chinese-funded projects might create some jobs but often bring in Chinese workers and drive up local costs. Any economic gains could be uneven and short-lived. Security would also be at risk. Peace in the West Philippine Sea would depend on China's goodwill, not international law. Losing the U.S. alliance would leave the Philippines more vulnerable if China reneges on its promises. The military and public, proud of their independence, would likely resist a pivot to China, risking political instability. The nation could become deeply divided over its future direction. The decision would shape not just the economy, but the country's sense of identity and security. The stakes are personal for every Filipino. The Philippines' choice would send shockwaves across Southeast Asia. Vietnam and other claimants would feel betrayed if Manila set aside international rulings, weakening regional unity against China. Some might cut their own deals with Beijing, while others would double down on U.S. alliances. Non-claimant countries would worry about regional stability and the shifting balance of power. A Philippine pivot to China could signal declining U.S. influence, prompting new alliances and rivalries. Washington would likely strengthen ties with remaining partners, deepening divisions in the region. The dream of a united, neutral Southeast Asia would fade. The Philippines' decision could reshape the entire geopolitical landscape. Its choice is about more than national fate. It could redefine Asia's future. The Philippines stands at a historic crossroads. Can China be trusted after years of broken promises and aggression? Is the U.S. alliance still worth the economic and political costs? Could the Philippines forge a third path, building ties with other middle powers to avoid dependence on either superpower? What does the nation truly gain or risk losing by choosing one side? This is a decision for all Filipinos, shaping the country's destiny for generations. The debate must be open and honest, weighing sovereignty, prosperity, and national identity. The choice will determine not just the fate of disputed waters, but the soul of the nation.